Hey everyone, and welcome to the Baldur's Gate 3 character creation and class guide. If you are new or just inexperienced with tabletops, this guide will help you get into the game and to feel strong. And that's what we want, is for you to be strong with big dick damage. Alright, I will go over my recommendations and I'm going to give you some advice on what stat you should focus on. I think in the guide, I actually give you the primary stat and then I give you a secondary stat, completely taking your worries away about what to do. I also give some general advice about a few spells as I'm going over the recommendations. And if you are a returning tabletop player who might just not be too familiar with 5th edition, well, feel free to skip to the end to my tips and tricks. I have the guide broken down into chapters for ease of use. Alright, I won't be using my model in this next part, so everyone can see everything with no issues, and there will be zero distractions. So let's focus up and make the ultimate character, guys. So stick around to the end. I have some bonus knowledge to give you, a small section with some tips and tricks to help elevate your gameplay in Baldur's Gate 3 to make your experience easier and to smooth over any issues you could encounter still if you are not familiar with 5th edition or tabletop in general. So let's crack on, y'all. So my first class I recommend that you play is not a ranger, but that's right, a rogue. Be cool, be a master of shadows. So I recommend a rogue for all the new players out there because they are super simple at their core. The only thing you need is dex. That's the primary stat you want to pump. So you want to get that to 20 as soon as possible. And what this means and what dex does for you is dex goes into your attack proficiency. So your attack roll goes into your damage proficiency, which is everything you do. So you want your dex, and dex goes into your AC. Which AC stands for armor class, which is your defense. It is a number that the enemies have to roll to physically harm you. So the fact that it's your defense and your attack stat is just huge. It also goes into a bunch of class skills that are super useful. Rogues are really versatile and they bring a lot to the party. So I highly recommend you play a rogue, and depending on all the subclasses that are available, do not, and I repeat this, do not fall into the trap of making an assassination rogue. Yes, they are cool. We all grew up, we all watch Naruto, but assassination rogues have a problem, and that's they do the really cool thing at the start of the fight, and then they're just a rogue for the rest of the fight. So pick a better subclass. Alright, moving on to the second class, and we're gonna pick something for big, strong, muscular, and to give us that big dick damage. That's right, you guys know what we're going to. That's right, not a fighter, a barbarian. If you want to deal big dick damage, you're playing a fucking bar, baby. So barbarians are super easy, and all you're gonna want to do is pump your strength and pump your fucking con. These are the two best stats you can pump on a barbarian to start. Strength is your damage, and that's all you care about. You care about doing mass damage on this. They're your strength characters. They're really good at moving heavy things. And then you want con, which constitution means high HP. And you want high HP on this because you're gonna run in, jump in, pop your rage, and just fucking cleave everything. Rage is their big skill. It's their big ability. It gives them resistance to all physical damage. So basically, you take half damage from physical attacks. So if you're at, 30 HP, you essentially have 60 HP in melee combat, which is huge. So super easy, big damage. They use big weapons. God damn it, do I love me some barbarians. I also like the Berserkin subclass personally myself, but there are a lot of fun other ones. Highly recommend Barb if you don't want to do Rogue. Next, we're moving to the third class, which, that's right, Fighter Man. Fighters, they're just, they're nothing super exciting to say about them. They are just white bread. They're Fighter Man. They hit things. They want the same thing as the barbarian. They want strength and con. They get fighter feats and stuff as they level, but I don't think they're super impressive. But you can't go wrong. They give you a lot of options. They can do a lot of different builds. Kind of a Swiss Army knife as far as melee builds go. They're my third recommendation. Super easy to play. And also, we're gonna pick a fourth class for the beginners. And that's right, Ranger. I think Rangers were terrible in 5th edition, so I don't have too much to say about them. And honestly, I still think even in this, if you wanted to play a Ranger, you're just better off playing a Rogue, especially if Scout comes into this game. If as a subclass, a Scout's a way better Ranger than the Ranger class. But yeah, if you want to play Ranger, not gonna knock you. I'm just telling you, if you want to play a better one, probably play Rogue, play Scout if that's a subclass that comes in with the game. But if you want to play Ranger, beginner class, I don't think it's too hard. I can't really give you too much info on this class, unfortunately. Alright, next I'm gonna move on to the tier I'm calling, it's in between the intermediates and it's in between the beginners. They're a little bit more advanced than the beginners, but they're basically in that ballpark. So if you didn't like my beginner classes recommendations and you're like, bro, please, I want to have a little bit of magic, I'm like, all right. So I recommend the Cleric. So why do I recommend a Cleric? Well, the Cleric is very forgiving because you can pick new spells every day at least. They cast pretty good. They got a channel divinity skill that can be good. If you're playing a Cleric, whether you're playing it or you have an NPC, Bless is one of the strongest fucking abilities in this game. You can bless up to 3 allies and it gives you a D4 on attack rolls and on your saves. I don't think it's damage, I don't remember, but it's huge. It is a huge advantage you can get all on one class. They also have a war domain if that comes in, which will basically turn you into a rep paladin from World of Warcraft. Two-handed weapons, and you can just deal so much fucking damage. A lot of fun, highly versatile. They have healing spells too. Clerics, they're good times, and they're like I said, closer to a beginner level. So if you want to use magic and melee, boom, Cleric. The next class I'm going to recommend in this category is, what is it? Oh yeah. So, moving on, if you're like, hey, I really just want to play a spellcaster, is there any spellcaster I can play? And there is, and that's right, it's a Warlock. If you have to cast spells, Warlock is where you want to be to start. They have some really solid spells, and their spell slots work better than wizards and sorcerers if you're new, because you can replenish all of your spells on a short rest as a warlock. So you can dump all of your abilities, short rest, get them back. Super nice. You have Eldritch Blast as a cantrip. That's just nice. It makes you on par with a ranger as far as range goes, chucking magic. Depending on the subclasses that come in, you can really empower that fucking cantrip to do a lot. You can also build warlocks more melee or more caster focused depending on the subclass. Super great. They are a charisma caster, so you want to pump your charisma as high as possible. I'm gonna go back to cleric for a second, because I forgot to mention clerics are a wisdom fucking caster. So they use wisdom to cast their spells. If you're doing melee, you're gonna want wisdom and strength for them. So you do wisdom, strength, con as your big ones, and then dex is a fourth stat. But warlock, yeah, you're just gonna want charisma. As a caster, you're still squishy, but they get proficiency depending on your subclasses. So probably wisdom and con, wisdom and dex. These are not wisdom, charisma and con, or charisma and dex, or what you want to look at. And so then I'm gonna pick so the next class I'm gonna pick up here for you guys is they're a little harder now, and we're gonna start with the easier one. So the next one, which isn't on the Baldur's Gate beta, so give me a second. Okay, I guess I'll take care of it and post edit. So the next class I recommend after Warlock is going to be a monk. That's right, a monk. They are similar to rogues, where they have a lot of utility stuff that they can do. They're very agile. The thing is, you want to pump your dex, and they have a second set they really want to pump for their saves. I don't remember it off the top of my head at the time of this recording, but because you want to focus on 2 stats with them, I'm gonna put them a little further down the list, because the classes that you can just kind of throw everything into 1 stats a lot easier to play, especially when you're new. They're fun, and depending on the subclasses, you can do a lot of really creative builds with them. If we get the 1 subclass, you can literally make a fucking character from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is pretty fucking sick. Alright, moving on. The next character I recommend on this harder list would be, that's right, the Paladin. Paladins are super easy at their core. Big fucking meat shield. If you're playing sword and board, you're gonna have a big fat juicy AC with your heavy fucking armor. You are gonna just waltz into everything and not give any flying fucks. You have spells that will supplement you. You'll be able to cast to increase your AC even higher. You have a channel divinity too. You have lay of hands at your disposal. You're just a walking DPS, and you have smites available to you. You have a bunch of different varieties of smites you can choose from, which is just empowering your next weapon strike. And if it works like 5th edition, you have to hit for it to be expended. So once the weapon's charged until you hit something, it will be smited. It's pretty fucking sick. They're a lot of fun. Their only downside though is paladins kind of want like 4 stats to like really be in their happy spot. Well, you want strength so you can do physical damage. You want high constitution. So you have big HP because you're kind of tanky, and then you want some dex, so your AC once again can be higher, and then I think it's charisma. Charisma is what they go off of, I think, for their casting stat. And so actually, if it's charisma, the charisma would be higher. You want strength, charisma, then con, then dex. If it's not charisma, it's a wisdom. A lot of fun though. You can't go wrong. Even though, like I listed 4 stats, you could not care about your casting stat, and you could just make a fucking tank and go ham and still be an unkillable juggernaut. Alright, so next up, guys, we're going to go into my intermediate list. This is classes that offer a lot of utility and have a lot of strengths, but if you're newer, even though they can bring a lot to the table, if you don't know what's on the menu, you're just not going to get the most out of them. So we're going to start off with the Bard. There's so many ways you can play a Bard, all dependent on your subclass. You can buff things, you can debuff things. They heal, they're just fucking great. They can do different types of damage, so much utility. They're a lot of fun to play, and they are a charisma caster. So you're gonna want to pump their charisma to start. I like charisma and dex on them personally, are the 2 stats I choose when I play a bard. But real quick, I'm gonna go back to warlock, because I forgot to mention, one of the best things you can get on a warlock is a spell, and it's called Alright, going back to warlock. I forgot to mention, as a warlock, besides Eldritch Blast, which I got carried away on, one other great spell they have is called Bane. And Bane, just like Bless, is one of the best fucking spells you can get and have on your team. What Bane does is you bane a group of enemies, and where Bless gave everybody you gave it to gets a d4, well, Bane does the opposite. All the enemies take a minus d4 to their attack rolls, to damage, to saves. So it's huge. You literally cripple them. It is one of the best spells. Another thing, adding to the power of the warlocks. Alright, back to the list. So we just did Bard. So next up on the intermediate list, Druids. I haven't played a lot of Druids in D&D myself, but their spell list is fucking bonkers, and they get some of the best fucking abilities out there. They are a wisdom caster, and so I would do wisdom and dex. Have too much to say about them because I haven't really played too many of them, but they're fun, and yeah, it's some of their best abilities are dependent on your knowledge of the game to pick the right abilities so you could actually feel useful, or else you just kind of feel worthless. That's kind of downside to some of the magic casters, which is why you're gonna notice, as you've noticed probably, a lot of magic casters are on the middle to hard tier list. That's why I recommend warlock. I find it more forgiving. Alright, and so next, after druid, we're going up to the hard tier list. These are the things that I do not recommend you touch until like your next playthrough where you have an understanding of the game. So the first one on the list is the sorcerer. The sorcerer is also one of the funnest classes in the game. Wild magic is so much fucking fun. But I don't know in the game if it will be as fun as it is in real life, because it was a bit homebrewy about how much, you know, DM discretion to let you use the wild magic. So the game is a bit more of a stickler. But yeah, so sorcerer is on this list because they they just get very limited spells, which means your knowledge of the game really needs to be there if you're going to make this class sing. If you're going to feel, you're either going to feel really powerful or you're going to feel worthless. So I recommend playing them on a next playthrough once you've seen how the game works. They are a charisma caster, so you want charisma, dex, and con on them preferably. Yeah, limited spells really is what hurts them the most. All right, and finally, that's right, the wizard. The wizard is on this list as probably one of the hardest classes, because your HP pool is just so fucking abysmal. So one misstep, one misplay, bad positioning, you're gonna die. And yes, you can have some spells and reactions to avoid that, but you're not gonna play perfect all the time. You're gonna end up in situations that are not becoming of a wizard. Also, to get the most bang out of their bucks, your knowledge of the game really needs to be there. If you don't know how the game works, and if you've never really played D&D, you can pick a bunch of spells, but they're probably not going to be the best spells for a lot of situations. It just comes from experience. Once you're experienced and you know how the game works, you can really you will be OP. Wizards are so fucking strong once your knowledge is there and you know what you're doing. And most of the caster classes too, they you start off weak. It's very hard in the early levels, but the later levels is where you guys start to peak. And the opposite for a melee, where the melee starts shining in the early levels. And I won't say that they peak late game, depending on your builds and stuff, but you won't like notice a huge power spike, not like a caster, because you know the casters will go from doing like 4 damage to being able to deal like fucking 30 damage here and there. But so yeah, that is my tier list. Oh, and for the wizards, they are an intellectual caster, so they want intellect, dex, con, and they pray to God nothing looks at you. But they do get some cool spells. Shield is one of the best spells you can take early at them, which will add 5 to your AC, which can save you, so highly recommend. That's my tier list and recommendation if you are new. And don't forget to subscribe to be notified about my next banger of a video and help spread the word of Sat Now. Alright guys, to round it out, this is going to be my tips and tricks. Alright, so I'm going to talk about advantage and disadvantage. If you don't know what those are, they are two of the things that will be driving the game. You want to get advantage as much as possible while also having disadvantage as much as you can. So advantage is you will take 2d20 and roll it for whatever you are doing, and you'll take the higher number. So if you roll a 20 and a 1, you will then use the 20 instead of the 1. Super useful. And disadvantage is the complete opposite, where you will take the lowest of the two numbers you roll. So if you roll a 20 and a 1, you will have to use the 1 instead of that big sexy nat 20. Okay, so I'm also going to explain that you guys should be careful and you should be saving often, because the game doesn't save often too much. So the shortcut is F5. Don't be afraid to use it. You can also save in the middle of combat if you want to ensure it goes well. And don't forget to save scum, especially if you're trying to get certain dialogues, or even the combat. Sometimes if you get bad rolls, I get some bad initiative rolls, and it could really end up total party wiping you real fucking quick. So save often, and don't be afraid to save scum. All right, so this next one is huge. You need to disengage before you move away from enemies. Now, if you're new, you don't know, and you're just tempted to just move your character into the best positions that you want them to be. But if you move past a enemy, they will get what's called an attack of opportunity. So you want to make sure you're disengaging. An attack of opportunity can really ruin your plan, especially if your character's low and you're trying to move them to get healed. They gotta disengage, or else they take free hit. I've actually had a wipe go down in the beta because I forgot to disengage, and I was moving my cleric to heal my barbarian. She got clubbed in the back of the head. She went down, barbarian went down, the entire party died. So don't forget, disengage. All right, guys. Next thing is you want to get your best stat to 17 into character creation, and then you want to take the stat boost instead of the feats when given the option at level 4 and level 8. So by level 8, you should have a 20 in your best stat. You should be getting a +5 modifier, which is just going to make your life much better. And I don't think I talked about it in the guide video. When you're playing a spellcaster, it's especially crucial because your primary stat is what they use for your spell save DC, and that's just a fancy word for how often you affect elements, whether something slips or falls in grease, or you fear something. It goes off of a spell save DC. So the stat is huge, and unfortunately they are using, to my knowledge, the newer versions of the feats, and they are neutered versions then from what they originally were in original 5e. So not super strong. There's still a couple of contenders, but not worth it in early. Just better take the stat boost. All right, and make sure, and this is big, make sure you are leveling up the NPCs, and you physically choose what they get, or else you'll end up with some weak ass teammates. And when you're trying to go big dick damage and your teammates can't hold it up for you, you're never going to succeed. Well, that's all I have for you for now, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in hell.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up.